Hey guys, in this video I'm going to explain the two different ways that Giraffe counts dwellings. Now the way that the existing Giraffe 2.8 counts dwellings is using a special kind of usage, which is a residential kind of usage, which has this dwellings parameter. So that's dwellings. You can see a dwellings parameter is a complex parameter. It's got the types of dwellings, so studio, 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed. You can make more of them. You can make 2 bed, 2 bath, 2 bed plus a study, whatever. But each unit has a size, a price, a number of car parks required, and a number of people that live in it. And Giraffe uses those in the urban tab to do reporting. And then Giraffe uses these mixes here to determine the number of units that you're getting. Now this residential usage is just one of the types of residential usage. I've got like garden apartments, which is another residential usage, just with different sizes and a different mix. And so you could be making usages like luxury apartments or affordable apartments or villas, whatever, as long as they've got that dwellings property. Giraffe Urban tab will pick it up in this residential section over here. So as I stretch and pull and move this around, the number of units is changing. And all that's happening is Giraffe is multiplying the area 2976 by the number of levels, 10 to get 29757,000 square meters GBA. Then it's multiplying it by the cell efficiency to factor it down to a sellable area or a rentable area. And then it's looking at the numbers and sizes of the mix and the size of the apartments and fitting them into that net area and telling you mathematically how many you'd fit in. And so there's obviously some rounding errors, right? Which is why when you see real buildings, they don't look like this. They look, like this, like the architect to actually make this thing exactly work and get the mix exactly is going to have to like chop little things out like this, right? And it'll start looking like a real building. But at this early stage of design, at the master plan stage, this is more than adequate for you to work off. There's nothing else you really need, right? But the weakness with this is it doesn't communicate the floor plan, especially to people that are not used to drawing floor plans. So as an architect, I see this building, I know for a fact, if you give me a mix, as long as it's within these numbers, I can make these numbers work, 100%. But what does that actually look like and feel like? How do I scale that, right? And that's where Dendro comes. So actually, let me just leave that on the page. Okay, and so Dendro, I can draw the line and then I can do the unit mix. Right, and this is an apartment layout, and so we're sort of talking about the same apartment here. Let me just shrink it down so it's a bit narrower. Okay, so this is pretty. I'm struggling to select these things. I've got to do that. Okay, this is basically the same apartment building, but you can see that as I move this thing around, this doesn't update, and that's because the Dendro tool in Giraffe is very flexible. It takes inner geometry, so if I open this flow builder, it takes inner geometry, which is just this line, and it outputs geometries, and you can assign whatever usage you want to those outputs. So this commercial, I could assign a residential usage to it, which you may think you would do, but the impact of doing that is that this little residential lump, these two lumps, are fed in here to this calculator, and this calculator is doing all that calculation. So it's like it's assuming these things have an efficiency, and then it's multiplying that efficiency, multiplying the gross area by that efficiency, and then it's trying to fit in the mix and all that sort of stuff. But that's not actually what's going on here, because the Dendro algorithm is actually doing that itself. This rectangle isn't factored down. We've already allowed for the corridor. So why would you do that, right? So I think so it's much better now to explicitly count the number of units, right? So just like, you want to know how many studios there are? Well, there's only one on the floor plan. It's over there, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. So there's 6 of them in this building. We just need to count that up. The way we do that is with analytics. So dwelling count. Now all of this is going to be in the your default, so you won't have to do this. But dwellings, I'll say studios, and we're going to apply to a studio apartment. And if you call them something different, just create the usages that you guys use and just save them. The same thing works. And I'm going to say levels, Save changes. This may crash it. No, good. Okay. Now we get 0 because I haven't set anything to studio. So what I'm going to do is in the apartment algorithm outputs a studio parameter. Then I've just applied a residential usage to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a studio usage to it. To the one beds, I'm going to apply a one bed usage. And these usages are not residential usages in the sense they don't have a mix applied to them. They're very simple usages. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. I'm just going to delete the levels as well so that I can control the levels from the top rather than override them at each leaf. So I'm going to control the levels from the feature, not from the leaf. Save that. And you can see I now have no levels. And so if I add a property here to the feature, what Giraffe will do is it will forward propagate that property to every leaf. Okay. So now you can see I have 6 studio apartments. And if we go into this, you can see there's my studio, my 50 square meter studio. And I've got 6 levels, so I've got 6 studios. I'm counting them explicitly. Counting them explicitly. And so let's duplicate this and find the one bed. And so for the one beds, I need to look for the one bedroom units and not the studio apartments. And then I just count them up. And I've got 24 one beds. 24 one beds. So I think, you know, this kind of approach to apartments is much more concrete, but it relies, it's coming from the drawing. It's coming from the drawing now, which means things are much, not more difficult, but they're just more, you have to be, you know, the drawing needs to be accurate. There's more interconnected things now. Like rather than the implicit calculation where you're just working out on an efficiency, it's kind of a macro high level view. This becomes a far more micro detailed view. And then because it's more micro and detailed, you have to be more explicit about the way you calculate it. So I just build it out like this. And what I mean that these dwelling usages like Studio One are not Giraffe dwelling usages is if we go and look at them, they're not residential usages. They're just simple. They don't have a mix. So they're ignored. They're ignored by the urban tab. So if I click on the urban tab, this residential thing down here, I can stretch and add geometry here to my heart's content. And there's been no addition of units over here at all. There's only additional units in analytics where I'm counting them up explicitly.